jam Liridon, jam nga Kosova, jam lind, jam rrit edhe haloj në Gjermani. Sot kam ju tregu pak diçka për gjuhën shqipe që folëm në Kosovë. Okay, I just told you that my name is Liridon. I am from Kosovo, or at least tell you that I'm from Kosovo. I was born and raised in Germany. And today I will try to tell you something about the Albanian language, or at least the Albanian that we use in Kosovo.
Great, well thank you, Liridon. Could you tell us a little bit about the history of Kosovarian and the differences in words and how different cultures have influenced your language?
Yeah, Kosovarian, I don't even know whether it's an own language, but we say we're talking Albanian. But whenever I talk to a real Albanian from Albania, I know that I'm talking a different language. And that's mostly due to the fact that we use the same grammar structure and most of the basic words are Albanian. But when it comes to something like religion, when it comes to something like workplace, you use words that no Albanian knows, or he uses something else, and you always get confused and mixed up and stuff. And that's mostly due to the fact that we were occupied by the Turkish for 500 years, so they brought their own language, and they brought Islam. So a lot of words that we use are either straight Turkish or Arabic, but we can't distinguish anymore. Unless you know Arabic or Turkish, you don't know that the words that you are using in your everyday life are not your own, actually. And after 500 years of Ottoman occupation, the Serbs came. So with them came a lot of their culture and a lot of their words, especially when it came to everything that was administration or trade, because most of the stuff that they sell in Kosovo is imported from, or was imported from Serbia. So the name tags were Serbian, people had to learn Serbian at school, so people knew Serbian. But they used it in everyday life because sometimes it just fit better to use this other word. And from the 60s, 70s on, like my father, a lot of Albanians from Kosovo were lent out by the dictator of Yugoslavia back then into different countries to work there as foreign workforce, seasonal worker. And these people who used to be something like maybe teachers, farmers, shepherds at home, or just day workers, go to a different country and learn to use all these maybe high-tech, maybe low-tech tools. They encounter a lot of products that they haven't known back home. So they have no words for it and just start using the words that the Germans use, or the Swiss. But they didn't know how to write. They just talked to people and somehow memorized the word. And when they wrote the words, they used the Albanian phonetics. And within these 40 years, these words have evolved a little, some haven't evolved at all, some are used in the wrong context. So for example, the trunk of a car is, we say Gepäck, which means luggage in German. So it's somehow, you know where it comes from, but still it's wrong. But in Kosovo, it's perfectly fine. It's so fine that even the US forces who are in the KFOR troops use these words. They have to learn some basic Germans maybe sometimes, because so many people have been to Germany, have worked there, they still know German. They couldn't write a letter in German, they can communicate with you. Yeah, so in the end, after 500 something years, the Albanian grammar structure was infiltrated with all these different words from religion, from occupying forces, or from German, because people came back with those.
Well, that's really interesting, and something else that we've talked about is that some words are still changing, can change pretty quickly. Could you tell us a little bit about the slang that you've noticed when you go back?
Yeah, I go there once in 2 or 3 years, and the slang, the youth culture, every year they do something with the way they talk to one another. I realized this when I went there like 5 or 6 years ago. They would say something like, "This is sick," and I would understand it because we say it in German, we say it in English. When something's sick, it's cool. But the next year, no matter where you go in Kosovo, people say something like, "Man, we need an ambulance," and you can wrap your mind around it and understand that this still means something like, man, this is sick, but they catch you off guard with it. You're only there for 2 weeks, so you don't understand it right away. And the third year I went, it was something like, man, this is infusion, because you need an infusion. It's so sick, it's like off the hook. And not only about slang, but after the war, people were quite pissed off of the Serbian, and they still had all these words, especially when it came to grocery and administration, as I said. So there was this movement of getting rid of all the words and going back to Albanian. But the problem was after this much time, you just couldn't get it out of the language anymore. People tried to rename the products, but it just led to a lot of confusion. So I think now we're sticking with the old stuff, and sometimes it's both names on it, and they try slowly to get it back. I think one of the problems with Albania was that while we were occupied or belonged to Yugoslavia, there was a lot of problems with going to school and being taught in Albanian. So people officially had no Albanian education. So all they had was what I have now. It's just this colloquial conversational, yeah, that one. And they have to go back slowly and regain their identity, maybe. I don't know.
Great. Well, speaking of conversational language, you talked a little bit about how cursing can be really different depending on if you're a man or a woman. Even the grammatical structure can vary pretty considerably. Could you talk about cursing?
Okay, cursing, that's what intrigues me the most. It's like when you curse at someone, you're really mad, and still it differs like who you are. If you're a man, you will curse like an American. You would use the F word a lot. You would be very aggressive and go that way. But if you're a woman, you can't say that because we're still a
patriarchal, yeah.
Patriarchal, that's it. And so women have to go some more elegant way, but which is still cursing. They would curse in the way of putting a spell on you. They would say something like, might the devil get you, or might the earth open up and swallow you, something like that. It doesn't sound that dirty, but it's still a bad thing to say. And the grammar structure is completely different. We don't use the imperative form. We don't say something like, fuck you. We would always go the way of, could I only, like, it's a grammar structure that you don't have in English, and kind of implies that it's not real and that it's distant. So you say something like, oh, if I could only rip off your head. You don't say, I'm going to rip off your head. You just go that way. And even if it's not cursing, like something like bless you, we say, might you be blessed, or could you be blessed? We don't go directly at it.
Really interesting. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is how family words are different in Kosovarian.
Okay. That's Albanian, Kosovarian, it's all the same. Back in the days, I don't know when, in Kosovo and Albania, all the Albanian people were kind of organized in clans. We never had a real state until 1912, when the British formed the state and left out Kosovo, which still exists in that form. We are Kosovo and Albania. A lot of Albanians are in Montenegro, which used to be Yugoslavia as well. A lot of Albanians are in Greece and in Macedonia. So, but all these people before that was this national or state structure were organized in clans. So the family was very important. So all the vocabulary that concerned family was very specific. If you say something like aunt and uncle in English, you could ask, okay, is your aunt like the wife of your uncle, or is the aunt the sister of your mother or your father? Where are we now? But in Albanian, you have specific words. When I say this certain word, you know, okay, that's my father's brother, not my mother's brother. And it's not the husband of one of their sisters. It's this one guy. And same with cousins. When I say cousin, there's a different word for the cousin on my mother's side and on my father's side. For distant, a distant cousin is a cousin. The close cousin is his son, like this uncle's son. So you know right away where you are. You navigate through the family tree and you're like, okay, that's close.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed learning about your languages.
Okay, no problem.